I'm one of 14 men who is accused of the Governor Whitmer kidnapping hoax, and it was not true. Obviously, it was a setup by the feds. However, an innocent person was raided by 40 FBI agents during a family get-together. They decided that they were going to point guns at everybody, including my 2 kids, who were 7 and 5 at the time. And yeah, that was pretty traumatizing. I had custody of both my kids at the time as well. I no longer have custody of them. They went back to their mom. My family, of course, has suffered some PTSD through this. And I myself, I learned a new thing, it's called CPTSD. So apparently that's something that I have that I didn't have before, so that's nice. One thing that you'll keep hearing from people is that they're really kind of a nobody. We're just regular people. We don't do anything spectacular, and next thing you know, you're just getting raided by the FBI. So when these people stand up here and tell you that you are next, it's not a joke. Every single one of you is next. This is what they want. They don't want conservatives. They don't want a dissenting voice whatsoever. So if you do anything outside of that, they will find a way to come after you. You need to look up the FBI list of red flag words, one of which is LARPing. That stands for something, live action role playing. It's like adults playing stuff, and apparently that's a word that can be put on a list. Speaking of lists, I was acquitted back in September 15th, right? It's been like 6 months now. Just a few weeks ago, I was finally taken off the terrorist watch list and the no-fly list. As an innocent person, for 5 months, I was still on those lists. It took that long also to get my weapons back, all my stuff back. I had well over 20 grand worth of stuff. I did finally get it back though. Instead of standing up here and talking about what happened so much, I'd actually like to talk about what I'm doing going forward because of this. And you've already heard a little bit, but getting involved locally, so your township level, your county level, become a delegate. It matters. But that's a great place to start. A lot of times people say nobody listens to you, it doesn't matter where you say it, who you say it to, but it does matter, and local is where your voice is going to be heard very well. So anyways, my brother and I started our own group. It's a movement more than a party. CONSOL stands for Constitution Solution, because we believe the solution to all our problems are found in the Constitution. It's a perfect document. And a lot of the things that my brother and I came to terms with, I'm actually hearing already in this group. So again, it's like being in a room full of friends already. It makes it a lot more comfortable to talk to you. But anyways, I am a delegate now. I was voted in. And so I plan on making a difference starting locally. And as a delegate, you can still run for other seats. So I'll let these fellows talk, and then I don't know how much time we're allowed, but if anybody had any questions about what happened, I typically like to let people ask, because you guys know what you want to know, So anyways, this is Mike.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike.
We're not in the same boat. We're going to start somewhere.
Louder!
We put in our paperwork for being delegates too. I'm not a very good public speaker yet, but we'll get there. I think the main thing for everybody is just don't give up. If you're innocent, do not quit. Push through it. Whether you're found guilty or not, there's always other avenues, but you got to keep going. You got to keep pushing through.
Thank you. Don't quit.
I'm Bill Null. We actually ran our own militia in 2015. You guys seen when Trump was being elected, people couldn't even go out and voice their opinion without being attacked. So we had started our group back in 2015, and all we ever did was protect people. It didn't matter what side you were on. If you showed up and you were Democrat, you were counter-protesting these people, we kept everybody safe. We worked security at so many events for actual other politicians. Patrick Kobeck, we had a big rally for him. We worked security for that. In 2018, we actually had a good rapport with the FBI. Things can change quick, and as soon as the political narrative everybody in here is in, you're not safe. They will do whatever they want. Look at the lady in Colorado. The FBI raided her for speaking out at a school board meeting. She was a terrorist. The things that they will do to your family enrages me still. Our house was raided after my brother and I were both arrested at the gas station. Our children were held hostage in cars for 4 hours while they destroyed our house after their threat was gone. These people are cowards with guns, and they will attack you, and they will kill you if they have to. They make up stories. The news, the stuff that came out of the news, when you're going through it, I'm sure you guys can testify to it, it's like watching a movie about somebody else, and they're using your face. And the media's in on it, the government's in on it. This was a political witch hunt. They wanted to demonize militias because of the presence here. We were making it to where people were comfortable around us. Big scary guys with guns all the time, but there was never any violence. Everybody was always polite, and we were always respectable to everyone. Just don't give up. There was so many people in this case that gave up, and now they're sitting in prison. There's, the guys that pled guilty in the federal case, they got the shortest amount of time, but the guys in the state case, they gave up. They're looking at 20 years in prison for pleading guilty. The two guys in our case, the prosecution, they ended up flipping it and raised their threat level after they agreed to a deal. You're even in an agreement that you give yourself, they can turn on you and it doesn't matter. There's nothing you can do about it. Your only hope is a trial by jury, and hopefully you get a straight jury that's not filled with left-wing lunatics, because in the Justice Department is politically ran now. You can't get a fair trial in a liberal county if you're not a liberal. So yeah, just watch what you say on social media. They will go back 100 years if they have to and dig up something in that you're predisposed to this condition that they call you a terrorist now, for voice and opinion. I say you should actually get louder. If everybody in here actually just stood up, there never has to be violence if everybody just stood up, voiced their opinion, and have each other's back. We got lucky. Our family, we are close. We went through it. The family went through it. They had us lawyers before we ever even got an arraignment. They already had our attorneys there. Our attorneys had to fight to actually be a part of our arraignment because the government already picked us lawyers to represent us without us actually, we didn't ask for lawyers. Everything about this case was corrupt from the beginning. The FBI lied on the stand for 7 days. And all the judges, the prosecutors, they're all in on it with the FBI. The FBI picked our jury, and then Dana Nessel condemned the Antrim County for acquitting us. There's no way out of this except for us standing together. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm not real good at the public speaking either. So.
Yes, there's a couple of things that I wasn't prepared for this, I guess, but there's a couple other things during the trial, talking about how the FBI lies and whatnot. Agent Impola took a timestamp and placed it 4.5 hours earlier to paint a narrative that I was in on plans, that I knew about stuff before I was duped into a ride up to Antrim County. And when that got brought up in court, the prosecution had to recant what they said and everything, but it rewrote the whole narrative. And it makes
liars!
Yeah, liars and cowards, dude, for real. Let's see. And then the other thing that was really surprising, when you go through this sort of stuff, you can watch all the TV shit that you want. But when you go through the stuff yourself, and I call it seeing behind the curtain, man, let's talk about Wizard of Oz again, right? You look behind that dang curtain, and you cannot go back to the reality that you grew up and you were told about, man, because it's not real. I lived a lie, and now I can't be a part of the system again, but I'm still in it. The only thing that we can do is change this. from the inside. So again, grassroots movements. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you, by the way, Grand New Party, for hosting this event. What I want to do is what's to get all people affected by the government, so us, the J6ers, the false electors, anybody who's been, but we all need to come together and, like Bill said, be noisy. Like, we need to be noisy and get this out. Man, I really don't know what else to say. We have 3 years of this under our belt, so to sit here with a few hours, like, I don't even know where to start, where to end, because if I started, we don't got days, But, yeah, so I guess, is that okay?
So your family is here. Tell us who's here.
These guys.
My wife, my niece, her friend. This is my oldest son, my sister-in-law, my sister, my youngest son, my cousin, and my niece. They've been with us. Yeah, they've been with us through thick and thin. We spent 2 months in jail and they held the whole family together. So, yeah, it was brutal. Yeah, well, he had to grow up real quick. He's just now 20. He was 16. My other son was only 13 when it happened, and these, like I said, they traumatized him. It's, it puts me in a rage.
What a beautiful family. Thank you guys. We know what you're going through. Does anybody have any questions for right here, John Smith? I'm ignoring my husband. He can't be first. John.
So, my county chair is part of the Atari. I don't know if you're familiar with their story.
We heard
He
about
spent
it.
2 years in prison. He's continuing his mission in militia. Are you guys continuing this mission as well?
Eventually, I don't know. It depends. I'm honestly want to put my name on ballot for governor soon. I may be reaching for the stars, but we've got to do something.
Any other questions? Okay, Matt.
You guys, thanks for everything you do, and we all apologize for what you've done on behalf of our government, right? Have any of the agents or FBI guys, or it was mostly FBI, is that correct?
It was a mix of average.
Has anyone been punished or fired or demoted or promoted?
So the only guy that got in trouble was the guy that beat his wife after a swingers party.
Right.
And I think he only got suspended. I don't even think he got fired.
So it's nothing to do with your case, though?
Nope. Nope.
So no one's leaving?
Kermie.
Was your local sheriff involved in persecuting you?
That's a really good question. I have no idea about mine.
My local sheriff is Sheriff Darleaf. That goes back into, I could have told that earlier, but Allegan County Sheriff came into Berry County and they did not tell Darleaf that they were raiding my house. Allegan County Sheriff worked with the state police and the FBI to ransack my home and my brother's home. He lives in Allegan County. I do believe the reason why they had my brother and I in this is because of our relationship with our county sheriff. He stood with us at a few events. He spoke out up against Whitmer, and then suddenly he's left in the dark. They bring us in. They knew our relationship with law enforcement, even as a militia. All they had to do was call Dar, and they would have been like, hey, they've got warrants for arrest. Dar knows us. He would have called us, and we would have turned ourselves in. Instead they had to put our family through it. After 2 months in jail, the first time we sat down with our lawyers, Greg Townsend, who was attorney general in our case, he ended up getting fired for putting an innocent man in prison for 16 years for withholding evidence of his innocence. So he was relieved from our case, but he offered us, they said if we implemented Darleaf in this plot, they could probably dismiss our charges. So So when you think it can't happen to you, you can be a sitting sheriff and say something wrong and they will try to get you.
Yep, it's terrifying.
I want to say something. You asked about militias, and I do want to speak on that real quick if we're going to continue on. I'm not part of their militia. We live like over 100 miles away from each other. I was not even a part of a militia when I got raided. I do plan on either joining one or starting my own, however, because well, the government is trying to push these anti-paramilitary bills. Well, paramilitary is militia, and also under that bill, it would cover church security. So you could get in trouble if you're part of a church security, if you have a structured command, if you train together for, things that could possibly harm somebody. Well, part of defense is learning how to harm people, possibly, It's not your go-to, but...
Well, like you said, you gotta be louder.
Yeah, you gotta be louder. So the reason that I would join or start my own again is just a big middle finger to the government, because it's constitutionally protected. How dare they tell me what I can and cannot do? But yeah, I wanted to answer that.
Any other questions? Right here.
Yeah, could you guys tell just like quick story, summarize how the agents, the FBI agents or whatever government agents deceived you and trapped you and got you guys to do things you weren't realizing what you were doing that led to your indictment?
Well, the three of us were actually, we couldn't use entrapment as our defense, so it actually wasn't entrapment. We never actually did anything illegal. We were implemented into this plot because I was invited to a militia cross-training by an FBI agent by the name of Steve Robeson. He turns out that the FBI will hire anybody. He's actually a pedophile and he's a rapist, amongst many other frauds and felonies that he's created. He represented himself as the national commander of the Patriot 3% militia. He supposedly helped law enforcement track down and put a stop to sex trafficking rings. Well, as a militiaman and a father, that's something I could get down with. So yeah, it was like, he showed me candy in a van and I went. It's a shame what they've done, but the FBI lies even in court when they say, like, the Wolverine Watchman. None of us here were ever a part of the Watchman. We didn't know the Watchman. I only know the names of everybody involved in this case because they were in trial. The leader of the Wolverine Watchman was an FBI informant by the name of Dan. So the leader of Adam Fox's national commander, they treat Adam Fox as he's this big scary guy. He was duped by the FBI as well. Dan was like a father figure to him. He's an FBI informant. Steve Robeson started his group and founded it, handed out business cards and started his group for him here in Michigan. Jenny Plunk was another leader of a militia. She was attached to Barry Croft. Selling guns. Steve Robeson had guns on him every time I seen him, but he was a felon for 20-some years already. When the FBI said they burnt him because he was a double agent and because he bought a firearm, they knew he had firearms on him from the day they started employing him to be an agent provocateur. It's never ending. You don't know, there was 13 or 14 informants that they know of, plus Adam Fox had 2 FBI agents in his group now. Adam Fox had 5 or 6 feds in his group with him, and he's the ringleader, and he got put in prison for 16 years after a botched first trial. They had 2 men acquitted in that trial. Who knows how many jury members found him guilty. They had to retry him because if they didn't get a conviction in that case, the rest of us walked no matter what. So they had to get a conviction. They weren't allowed to talk about the first trial in their case. What people don't know is you think you get a fair trial even with a jury, but there's certain things that the judges control they won't even let the jury hear, like words. So the FBI, and I don't know how it worked in the federal case, but the FBI funded their agents to invent a plot, and then they're the investigators. And then they sit down with the prosecution and they prosecute the case. And then behind the scenes, as you're getting your jury picked, they pick the jury for you. Then they sit there and testify to their own defense because If the FBI is involved, it's only to cover up their involvement.
If this sounds incredible, it sounds like a Netflix series, right? Which, there's a documentary being made, that's what the people that are here right now, so someday everything he's saying is gonna make a lot more sense to all of us when we get to listen in and figure it out, because it's incredible how deep it is. Do we have any other questions? Right here, Nick.
Thank you. I want to ask if you know how much resources, as far as money, ammunition, that the FBI brought to the table to further this thing.
Millions and millions.
Yeah, million, I think, wasn't what Barry was, how much did they spend on Barry? Christina Ursa, she is fantastic. She's been an advocate for us since this whole thing started. She knows more about my life or this case than anyone I've seen. She's sat through it all. She has the evidence. Everything we're saying has been documented, and it's been in the trials and cases. It's evidence that they already have. Yeah, kidnap and kill, fednapping plot. But yeah, they spent millions just on Barry Croft. He was an over-the-road truck driver. They were trying to implement him in a crime, so they were flying drones and following him for a year or so to implement it. And then they set Steve Robeson and Jenny Plunk on him. And I don't know what them two made, but I know that Dan running the Watchman, he was 60,000, 54,000. Christina, come up here.
They paid for a new home, they paid $60,000.
So Dan Chappell, the lead informant, he was paid $54,000 in cash, the envelopes of cash that said Chase Bank on it. And he got a new laptop, he got a smartwatch, they paid to relocate him. So this was for about 7 months' work for him. His annual salary was about that much. He also sent in text messages to his handling agent. He was building his resume by framing these men and setting them up. And then he wanted to go to college to be in law enforcement. Steve Robeson was paid around $20,000 for setting these guys up. Jenny Plunk around $8,000.
Again, I'm Shane Trejo, Executive Director of the Grand New Party PAC. Oh, I am Shane Trejo, Executive Director of the Grand New Party PAC. Coming back up here again. Love a good friendly audience. But one of the things that I want to mention today is that these men who were targeted, they weren't, mere victims of circumstance. They were targeted because they were patriots, because they stood strong. These are men who are cut from the same cloth as the founding fathers. Men who are ready, willing, and able to stand up against our nation's enemies, foreign and domestic. And that is why the corrupt system attempted to make examples of them. What the system wanted was for these men to take plea deals, turn on other patriots, and be examples that the system could point to and say, oh, look at these violent, malicious threats. See what we mean when we say that conservative right-wingers are the #1 terror threat in America. That's the narrative they wanted to perpetrate. And they wanted to use it as a justification to fund their operations, get bigger budgets for the FBI, and then have more sting operations targeting patriots in what would amount to a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then that example would be set to other patriots, that they should sit down and shut up and accept tyranny, or they might be next. But because these men stood strong, the system's narrative has fallen apart. Because they fought back in the court of law, the deep state now has the exact opposite of what the example that they wanted to achieve and show. Instead of having examples of domestic extremists found guilty in the court of law, they have men who now stand as examples, living examples of just how corrupt our government is. The government has been exposed, and as more people hear the gut-wrenching stories of oppression endured by men like Bill, Michael, Eric, and Lucas, their eyes will be open and their hearts will be changed. They'll understand who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. We need these stories to be heard. People shouldn't be afraid to post pictures of their guns on the internet. That's a core First and Second Amendment right. Yes. And that right should not be revoked just because somebody gets offended. And militia should no longer be a dirty word.
That's right.
Yes. Think about, look at society at its current trajectory, its downward trajectory. A militia is something that we're going to desperately need sooner rather than later. And the middle class, the suburbs, the moderates, the independents, they're going to change their tune very quickly when they really feel the pain of the agenda from the globalists that's being perpetrated on them right now. So we at the Grand New Party PAC are building for the future. We're building stronger leadership focused at the local level that will stand for the rights of the people. The solutions to our economic, social, and political problems will not be coming from Washington, D.C. or Lansing. No matter, we can put up the best people imaginable. We got some great people in this room, but it's not going to come from the higher levels. It's going to come from we the people, from the local levels, from the people in this room. And we must do whatever is necessary. We must get involved, and we must shield our communities from the schemes of the globalists. So with that being said, we are proud to issue our Courage Under Fire Awards tonight. So could all the speakers from tonight come back up here, as well as Tom, John, and Jordan. And we're going to present these awards. So come on up and stand over here, guys. So we issue Eric Molitor, William Null, Michael Null, and Lucas Gerhard Courage Under Fire Awards for keeping your dignity and self-respect and fighting back against the tyrants under the most dire of circumstances. We're proud to give these to you today. Thank you so much, guys. A lot of man there for one picture.